Stephen Fry, some of you Brit, I don't know, Becky, do you know Stephen Fry? Okay. Stephen Fry is a comedian, again, but he's an actor, comedian, kind of a philosopher, he's an intellectual, and he is being interviewed by this elderly Catholic, I don't know if he's a priest, I don't think he's a priest, but anyway, so he's asking, now Stephen Fry, oh that's good, there are right now there's probably 4 radical atheists out there. So Stephen Fry, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, and Christopher Hitchens. Those are what's called the radical atheists. Now listen, I listen to them a lot. I love to listen. You got to hear the other story, right? And a lot of times, hey, these guys they're really smart and they're really good thinkers, and I'm listening to them going, wow, that's really good. You know? Although I'm not convinced, but you got the wrong, in my opinion, wrong assumption. But I like what you're saying in the sense that it makes sense to you, but it's not reality. But Stephen is brilliant. He's really a good guy. I like him a lot. So let's listen to what Stephen has to say.
Suppose what Oscar believed in as he died, in spite of your protestations, suppose it's all true, and you walk up to the pearly gates and you are confronted by God. What will Stephen Fry say to him or it?
I will basically, that is the Odyssey, I think. I'll say bone cancer in children? What's that about? How dare you create a world in which there is such misery that is not our fault? It's not right. It's utterly, utterly evil. Why should I respect a capricious, mean-minded, stupid God who creates a world which is so full of injustice and pain? That's what I'd say.
Do you think you're going to get in?
No, but I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to get in on his terms. They're wrong. Now, if I died and it was Pluto, Hades, and if it was the 12 Greek gods, then I would have more truck with it, because the Greeks they didn't pretend not to be human in their appetites and in their capriciousness and in their unreasonableness. They didn't present themselves as being all-seeing, all-wise, all-kind, all-beneficent. Because the God who created this universe, if it was created by God, is quite clearly a maniac. Utter maniac. Totally selfish. We have to spend our life on our knees thanking him. What kind of God would do that? Yes, the world is very splendid, but it also has in it insects, whose whole life cycle is to burrow into the eyes of children and make them blind. They eat outwards from the eyes. Why? Why did you do that to us? You could easily have made a creation which that didn't exist. It is simply not acceptable. So, atheism is not just about not believing not believing there's a God, but on the assumption there is one. What kind of God is he? It's perfectly apparent that he's monstrous, utterly monstrous, and deserves no respect whatsoever. The moment you banish him, life becomes simpler, purer, cleaner, more worth living, in my opinion.
That sure is the longest answer to that question that I ever got in this entire series.
What? Whoa.
That's crazy. Okay, what do you say to Stephen Fry? What? From the ideas. What would you say to Stephen Fry? Yeah.
Look outside of your head.
Live outside your head?
Look outside of your
at
head.
it, yeah.
Wake up.
Which means?
Get out of your own perspective of how God is and see him. Cry out to him. Ask him questions.
Yes.
He's arguing that God created a fallen world, but the truth is that we did. He created a perfect world first, and then we mucked it up.
Yeah.
So, all the blame that he's putting on God, he should be putting on his own self and the rest of us as well.
Yeah.
Which is why we need God to begin with.
Right, yeah.
Because God is perfect and all-knowing and all-loving, and then he gave us the free will to choose to love him back, which is crazy, and he shouldn't have done that. He didn't have to, and he did it anyways, because he loves us and he wants us to be in perfect relationship with him, which means we get to choose to love him in return.
Good, yeah,
That's good.
excellent, yeah.
Yeah.
Rebecca?
I think it's very interesting because on one side you can understand him, like
Yeah.
I understand him totally, because you believe in the Almighty God, so why he can stop this suffering to show me that he is the Almighty One. But also I think it's showing us that it's not only about knowledge, it's a revelation that God just can give to a person, open his heart and say, okay, there is a God. And I will never understand him, but at the end, when I get to heaven, there's the possibility to get to know him.
Oh.
Good, yeah, well done, yeah. We'll go with Joshua first and then Keo.
He had his hand up first.
Okay, go ahead.
I would say to him with a really quiet tone that if I would listen to him for the first time and not acknowledging he's an atheist, I would say he believes in God but he's angry at him. And I would say there is no way you can be angry enough at him for him to rebuke you forever. So yeah, this is what I would say.
It's a good point, very perceptive, very good point, yeah. Anybody else? Yeah, okay, Josh.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a second because I had the same thought that Madeline had, and then I was thinking, how would he counter that? And it's something that I'm thinking through. What he would say is, why would God ever create a world where we would have the ability to choose the suffering?
Yeah.
How do you answer that?
Joshua, I did the same thing.
Are we gonna be in trouble if we run over lunch?
No.
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead, yes.
That's all we're thinking.
Because God, it's big. Yeah, maybe too simple answer. I don't know. Yeah, but God created us with free will, and if we didn't have free will, we would have been robots, and that's not loving. He gave us the choice, and that's loving.
But is it still loving if our choice was able to cause so much destruction? This is not my viewpoint, I'm just
Yeah.
arguing
Yeah.
the other side.
Yeah. I like
Just to get us to think.
Yeah.
Why would God do that, even if our choice could cause so much pain and suffering?
All the hands.
Madeline, you have to, I don't know, somebody just.
Is Eric, no, Carmen, sorry, Carmen, yeah.
To add to what you're saying, it's actually a discussion I don't enjoy getting into because it makes me very existential. But to also play devil's advocate, why would God knows all. God knew what would happen when He created us.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
why would He even create us if He knew what was going to happen? Like what even is the point? I understand the community thing, wanting people, but why would He do that if He knew what the end result was going to be?
Okay, good, Carmen, thank you, yeah. Let's go with Eli.
How I think it is, or how I've been explained some of it, is God created man with, free will, so that he, instead of having like you do this and I am forced to listen, I have free will, so I can choose what I want. Like, I can choose to follow, or I can choose to go my own route. By doing so, we're actually connected closer in relationship, because we're not actually being put in a situation where, like, for instance, the angels, they're all, like, servants of God who do what God says, and there's not really a whole lot of, like, like free will in that. Where there was, but less so. Like, I don't know, like, and then having free will, we fall away, God brings back an answer to rescue us, to reconnect us, to basically give us an opportunity to still be in complete relationship with Him, because even the angels weren't created in his image. We were the only being made to bear the image of God. So we're therefore made to be in a relationship with him as sons and daughters.
Okay, good, yeah, thank you, yeah. Well, one more, okay, we don't want to hold up lunch, but yeah.
If you want to stay, feel
I will
free, because
take
I would
a
love to
minute.
continue this discussion.
Me too, probably.
Who's going first?
Yeah,
Okay, Josh, can you read your question?
So the idea is that, you know, I think what Madeline said is good, that, you know, actually I forget what she said, but essentially what he would say is, why would God create a world where we would even have the free will to choose,
Yeah.
knowing that it would cause so much pain and suffering?
And you, what did you add to it?
Just why, like, God knew, Astrid answered it, like, because of love, and he wants us to love him truly because of free will, but I also added on, why would he even create us if he knew what the outcome was gonna be?
You could answer that in a few different ways. I would say, in some way, God was thinking it was worth the risk, and it was worth the cost. Because he also suffers from it. He also is hurting. He's also in pain, and we forget it most of the time. And he thought it was worth it to do that for us, to like give us life. And also, like, he answered it kind of himself, which he didn't recognize, I think, because he said that if God would exist and he would come up to the gates, he didn't want to get it. He did not want to. And that's the option God gives us in his life. In what he did at the start of creation, he gave us the opportunity to step in a relationship with him and live with him. And we could choose if we want to or not. And that was for him worth the risk and worth the pain. And we made our own choice in that, which is also a choice for like heaven or hell for eternity. And in that way, you could also, I don't know if you could say, but that's even love of God to accept our choice for like not believing in him and accepting our choice for hell. That's even God's love, not forcing himself, I would say.
An atheist would counter that with, why would God even allow us to choose a place where we'll burn for eternity? How is that loving?
Otherwise, okay, now
Okay, pretty soon we're all gonna burn in hell because the cook is gonna be angry.
Sorry, Jared.
Go ahead, Ned, one last kind of free move. This will sum up all of it and bring it back to
I don't
reality.
know if I can do that.
No pressure.
I can do it.
Yeah,
Do it
you
now.
guys, if you want to leave now, because I might take a second. Okay.
I'm really curious.
So there's this thing that I've been thinking about for like years at this point. Okay, it's got a couple of different things that have to like be tied together. Okay, so remember like in middle school, this happened to me. So I'm speaking from personal experience. It was not fun. I got like invited to a birthday party solely because the parents forced this girl to invite me, right? And then when I got there, she was like, I don't really want you here. I was forced to invite you. And it was like, it sucked and it wasn't fun. And like, I knew she didn't choose to have me there. She was forced to have me there. Okay? And like, God doesn't force us. God's so cool. So God is love, right? But he's also just at the same time. I'll circle back to that. So because God is love fully, he had to create something to pour that love into, which is how we got here, right? So then, in that, because he loves us, he didn't force us to love him in return. He could have. But that wouldn't have been a true, perfect relationship. You know, there would have been that like falseness behind it. But then he's also just, and so there's like consequences to sin. Obviously, we chose for a split second to not follow that perfect love, right? In sin, you know, Adam and Eve, they ate from the apple. That's like an act of not loving God in that moment perfectly,
Yeah.
right? Because they disobeyed him and went against him. And so then, God made, then sin comes into the world and comes into the picture, and God is still just, perfectly. And so there's consequences to sin. And what he could have done is he could have made different sins have different consequences, but instead